But this is a story. So I remember when one of my sons was, I think he was 4 or 5, maybe 4. Yeah, I think it was 4. He was something about 4, and he watched a lot of movies back then. We used to watch movies, and he came to me and he said something like in the movies we always emphasized that the people who died were the bad guys, and he asked me something like, only bad guys die, right? Like as a broad statement, not in terms of movies, but just a broad statement about life. Only bad guys die. Now, wow. I mean, now I've got a 4, 5-year-old who I need to explain that, no. Not only bad guys die, indeed, everybody dies. And it's true that usually bad guys die violent deaths, but sometimes even good guys die violent deaths. And we discussed what good guys are and what bad guys are and so on. And at some point I'm saying, everybody dies, and I said something like, I'll die one day, but it's a long, long time from now. Don't worry. And suddenly he burst out crying, right? I mean, really crying. And I thought, oh my God, I've scared him, and he thinks I'm going to die, and he's worried about me dying. And just show you how self-centered I am. So I'm telling him it's going to be a long time. You'll be a grandfather before I die, whatever. I'm going. It's way in the future, and to the extent that a 4-year-old even understand what future is and how to measure stuff. And he keeps on crying, and it's not stopping. And finally, I try to get him to tell me why he's crying, and he says, what he's really crying about is not because I'm going to die. He suddenly realized that he was going to die. Right? And that's what he was crying about. And it was that moment, the thing that went through my mind is, wow, religious people have it so easy. All they have to tell this little kid now is, don't worry, when you die, you go to heaven, and you'll see me and everybody else, and it'll be a great time, and da-da-da-da-da, all the fantasy nonsense that religion teaches about death. And isn't this so easy to stop him from crying and to stop him from being afraid? And of course, I mean, it just hit me that the temptation that people must have to this, it was never a real temptation. I went in and explained to him the finality of life and so on, and he cried it out, and that was it. We never had a conversation about it again, and he's never been anything but an atheist, and I don't think he's ever had any questions about religion or the existence of God. That was just it, and it passed. Reality is what it is, and it's sometimes scary and strange and sad, maybe, but it is. It is what it is, and that's the context in which you live, and that's the context in which you function, and it's the context in which you do the best that you can to live the best life that you can. Last 2 episodes, we've been talking about living the best life that you can and how to do that, right? So that, that's kind of another story, if you will.
It's wrong in that way. However, let me say, I certainly recognize anyone's right to have any religion they want to. Mm-hmm. Their legal right. Morally or philosophically, that's a different issue.
For many people, religion is a way of explaining the mysteries of life, the unknown things. Do you recognize no mysteries?
I don't believe that lack of knowledge is a license to start inventing fantasies. Mm-hmm. Man certainly is not omniscient, and I believe he should stay within that which he knows, act on his knowledge, and constantly try to expand his knowledge. It's not necessary to be omniscient. I don't think there are mysteries. It's a wrong term. There are a great many things which man doesn't know. And that's what the progress of science's knowledge is for, to learn more and more, but not to invent explanation for what you do not know.
Mr. Rand, you're an atheist. Were you always an atheist? Did you grow up with religious training at all? Or
no, I had practically no religious training. My parents formally had a religion, but fortunately didn't impose it on me in any serious way. And I was about 13 when I decided I'm an atheist, and that was it.
Was there anything that brought you to this?
No, just simply thinking on the subject. And my main reason was that it is wrong to believe anything for which there is no evidence, and also the fact that I resent religious morality, which tells man that he's an inferior being.
He's
And
not.
He is not. As far as he knows, he's the highest creation in civilization, or the highest being. And the idea of accepting on faith some ineffable being who is superior to you in every way, even though you cannot aspire to that perfection, that is just a formula for psychological inferiority complex, for self-abasement, and I saw no reason for men to accept it. That's as early as 13.
Yes.
I still think so, but I know it much more clearly now.
Of course, religion is used by some people as a way of facing the idea of the inevitability of death. How do you feel about that as an objectivist? That is, how do you feel about death? Is it?
It doesn't concern me in the least, because I won't be here to know it. Don't you see that death, the worst thing about death, and what I regard as the worst human tragedy, is to lose someone you love. That is terribly hard. But your own death, if you're finished, you're finished. My purpose is not to worry about death, but to live life here on earth and now.
Do you find joy in that life?
Oh, yes.